Okay. We'll start the meeting. Okay. What is it? 5:03. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
I guess they're all wondering if you're going to do a moment of silence.
Well, it isn't on the agenda, so. If you really want to stand up for a while, go ahead. Okay, invitation to address the Board of Trustees and agendized and non-agendized items. I have one item. Special field trip, Brady McCarran.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Superintendent, Board, Cabinet. Sorry for missing last meeting. I was actually at a college graduation. Some schlub was graduating from Cal State Northridge with a master's degree. And I won't be at the, what are you laughing at? I called myself a schlub, so what? All right. And I won't be at next board meeting, so I'm glad you guys called this special board meeting just so I could talk tonight. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Normally I have prepared notes, but tonight I wanted to speak a little bit more from the heart. There is, as I was looking over the agenda for tonight and the funding as it was breaking down, there was one thing that I had noticed that wasn't on there, and I think if we go back in our own private histories as students and as, for some of us, teachers back in the day, remember that one of the concepts of education was not just what we had learned in the classroom, but it was also what we had learned out of the classroom that sometimes taught us great and valuable lessons. One of the classes that I had taken in my master's class, believe it or not, was in strategic management. And the instructor had told us, I want you to go to the Museum of Tolerance and learn what happens when no one is a leader and see what can happen when that happens. And so we had to write a report on when people don't stand up to be a leader. But what we had learned when we went to the Museum of Tolerance also is that ordinary people can become leaders as well. And if you've never been to the Museum of Tolerance, you're missing out on something that is something that I think that every person alive needs to go to. And on the way home, my husband and I were talking that it's hard for us to believe that we lived out here for 9 years and we had never been to the Museum of Tolerance. And I said just off the cuff, I said, what's almost a shame is that I don't think any of the schools go out there anymore that are located too far away. And he said, well, then you should make that happen. And never one to be challenged, I accepted that as a challenge. And he looked at me and he knew instantly that he made a mistake by saying that, because he knew that that meant that I was going to make that happen. And so I contacted some people at CMI and at Heritage and at Paris that I had known, and I said, if I were to make the offer, would you go? Would you take a class? Would you make it happen? And they all said, sure. How can you make it happen? So I took that as a second challenge to make this happen. And so I come to you tonight to offer what I'm about to offer in hopes that it can expand only in the future. I have made the offer to CMI and to Heritage and to Paris, but CMI is the one that has taken it up the most. And next year, it is going to be my honor to take the entire senior class to CMI to the Museum of Tolerance, and I am paying for everything. I am going to pay for the bus. I am going to pay for the admission for all the seniors to go. And here is where I'm coming to you tonight. I don't want it to be just the senior class of CMI, which will be approximately 50 students. I want everyone who can from our district to be able to go, to see this amazing place, because there's so much more to learn there than they could ever learn in school. And I think we're doing them a disservice by not letting them go. I think we are doing our students a disservice by not letting them go on field trips other than the ones we give them, the avid students, to the colleges, which is fantastic. But what about the other students? I would like to challenge the board to find field trips for the students of other classes to learn. And here's what I'm going to offer as well, too. I don't know how much the buses cost. That's fine. I don't know how much the admission costs. That's fine. But if somehow we can find a class from Heritage and Paris and Paloma Valley, a class of 35 to 50, AP history, AP English class to write a report on it, AP Psych to study this, I am willing to pay for that busload of students to get into the Museum of Tolerance, just like I am for CMI to go as well, too. But I'm also challenging you to help me pay for that, either through funds from the district or through yourself or from ASB to raise money somehow or another, because they are missing something, and we can't allow that to happen. Tonight you're going over things that is going to make their education better, but here's an opportunity we have a little bit further than our backyard for that to happen. And I just want to present that tonight to know that there are people like me out there who will make that happen. We just have to find them. And if I can do it, you can do it as well, too. So if you know of people who would like to make this happen, have them help me to make this happen for not just CMI, but for all the schools. Because I think every student in our district should have the opportunity to go out there and learn something more than what our textbooks or our videos can show them. So that's what I'm coming here tonight, is to let you know that I'm doing my best to make this happen, but I could use some help as well, too. That's all I have. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Brady. I have visited the Museum of Tolerance, and I highly recommend it to anybody who wishes to go. We've taken teachers down there from Pinacati in the past. So,
Brady, did you know that Dr. Machado's parents were both docents at the Museum of Tolerance? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 5.1, Curriculum Common Core Implementation Plan, Paris Union High School District. Information item.
As Grant Bennett is coming to the podium, he's going to share Paris Union High School District's Common Core Plan. And since the California State Board of Education adopted Common Core state standards in 2010, we've had a couple years to begin to phase in these standards. And so Grant is going to walk us through the pathway, and you're on.
Thank you. President Holstrom, Board, Dr. Greenberg, and Cabinet, I appreciate the time to come and present what we're doing with the funds that the district received. The Paris Union High School District, over a 2-year period of time, received about $1.9 million to implement the Common Core, and that came from the state in the 2-year payments. And what I wanted to kind of share with you to start with is what we could do with the money. And listed there are some of the things we could do. Professional development, we've done a lot of that over this year and going into next year. And you'll see more defined things as we go on. We could use it for instruction materials and technology to support the implementation of Common Core. Those are the things that the money can be used for. And on our next slide, you'll see what we did. Like this school year, we used $247,000 of it for technology coaches at each of our schools. They were half-time released. We did a lot of professional development with that. We paid for the teachers at the Summer Institute, and we've done other conferences and trainings throughout the district for $235,000. We had to, when we brought in the one-to-one initiative, we really had to expand our Wi-Fi capabilities at all of our schools. And being that's one of our main focuses is how we're going to be doing a lot of things. That was an expansion that really was needed. This year, with the one-to-one devices being brought in, we had some temporary tech coaches, assistants. So the Common Core implementation funds covered that. And then I guess the last one is me. Bringing back the Director of Learning Support Services that was done away with a couple years ago. That was also brought in because my main job is the implementation of the Common Core and that focus. So that's what we did this year with the money. So the money this year we received was about $1.1 million. Next year, this coming school year, we received another little over $780,000, And the professional development days that we're having to start the school year, that's coming out of the Common Core. And our main focus is how we're going to implement the Common Core, how we're using technology to do that, and coaching our teachers on the Common Core and those technology devices. So it's about $247,000 that someone changed it. $250,000 is through the Common Core. The Common Core implementation teams is about $60,000, and those are the teams that we have teachers getting together working on the curriculum. We have math, English, science, social studies teachers that are meeting regularly to develop units of study and to develop assessments that go along with that. So that's been a huge project that we've been working on. And then again, more professional development. With AVID being such a focus of our district on how we're going to implement Common Core, along with technology, that we're paying for the Summer Institute again, and then other conferences and training as they come through. We're doing ERWC training for expository reading and writing in the district, having teachers to go that through the summertime and then into next year. We have other Common Core trainings we're going to be working with RCOE to bring in to help our teachers with that transition and make it as smooth as possible. And then again, I'm on there for another year. And then indirect costs, those are things that are associated with all work that we do whenever we receive grants and other funds like that. There's indirect costs that go along with it. So it's about $780,000 that are coming in for this year. And that's kind of what our plan is, that where we're going with the money we received. What our real focus is really implementing the technology and working on those units of study with our teachers for the Common Core. Did you have any questions, comments, concerns that I could clear up for you? Yes.
On the AVID summer training,
Yes.
had that in the past, right, the last couple of years.
Right.
This is for teachers that haven't participated before, or just completely? Oh,
Yeah. We have about 150 teachers, staff members, because some of them are paraprofessionals. We've offered it to this summer to go because they're working in the classroom with the kids also very closely. Teachers that haven't been there, administrators that haven't been. We're really ramping up, trying to make sure that everybody's had the opportunity to go to that training.
so if somebody's been there before, are they allowed to go again?
There are people that have been there before. They're going because there are different strands that are involved with the AVID training. So they may go for an ELA writing one this time, but it may be using technology on a different one. So there are different strands that they could go to
Now,
continue
they're
the
all
growth.
volunteers to go. They're not paid to go.
Right, they're not paid to go, but their rooms are paid
expenses
for.
are
All
paid
expenses
for.
are paid.
Okay.
I'd like to clarify that what Grant presented is Common Core monies. It's not LCAP. Okay, we haven't opened that for LCAP. And to clarify on AVID, AVID has aligned with Common Core very, very strongly. So as Grant mentioned, they offer different strands. Those strands are extremely rigorous, and they're just a higher intensity and different levels, and they build upon it. So a teacher who went last year or 3 years ago, if they took that same strand, it will be completely revamped to align specifically to the Common Core and the rigor that's contained within Common Core.
Okay. Any other questions?
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll be back next month. Same another show.
In
It
2
has to go-
weeks?
it has to go 2 months. So.
Oh, 2 months?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, curriculum, public hearing for local control accountability plan.
Before Marcy gets started, again, put this in perspective. I think the board members and most of the audience get it. But Common Core is the what, AVID is the how. And then, of course, you wonder, well, how are you going to pay for all this? I mean, we had some Common Core implementation money this year. We're hoping that we'll have some in the new budget, but right now it's not in the governor's budget for next year. And now Marcy's going to talk about the LCAP plan, which she and her team have been working feverishly for, it seems like a year, but it has been a year, but really 6 months of intensive work. And just as a reminder, there's a little bit of storm clouds in the horizon. As everybody knows in the room, that you can't do LCAP without LCFF. local control funding formula. And we're one of the districts that win because we have students, high percentage of English learners, high percentage of students in poverty, and we have some foster youth as well. Mm-hmm. And that's a good thing. The bad news is, or the news, it's not bad news, it's news. The governor recognizes the pension problem in both PERS and STRS, specifically STRS. And he's got a plan that's going to take STRS, the employer contribution, from 8.25% to 19% in 7 years. That's a big jump. And so one of the things, before Marcy gets started, you need to know we're going to have a really good LCAP plan, but it's not as good as the one we would have had if we didn't have to start preparing for the inevitable. As Candace says, the note is coming due, Jonathan, in 7 years. We need to start preparing for it. Now, we may hear some good news out of Sacramento this week as the budget is settled between the governor and the legislature, and we can always be hopeful about that, but hope is not a plan. And when I talked to the county superintendent and said, you know, Mr. Young, I hope our LCAP plan is approved by the county in 3 years when it gets evaluated to find out how we're doing. We don't want to go in LCAP jail. He said, yeah, that's a good thing. But he goes, worse than that would be going bankrupt. So he said, you may have to use some of your LCF money to keep the district moving and not move back to furlough days. So I don't want to be the bearer of bad news and tell you that LCAP is not worth the paper it's printed on, but I just want everybody to know that we have the secondary part that Candace is going to present on the budget. So with that, Marcy, with that bit of sobering news, tell us about LCAP.
Okay, just question, do I have to start the hearing or before we do anything?
Well, wait a second. Do you want to do the presentation first?
No, this is open. This is public hearing opening.
Okay, so you don't have a presentation for the board on
Well, okay,
And then open
so
it? Okay.
Right.
we don't have to
Because that way they can know what
have
the
a
heck we're
motion or
proposing.
anything like that.
Yeah.
So let me just ask. We'll do ours, you do yours, and then we each open separate? Okay, very good. And then we'll.
This is the first year around the state we're all doing this, so sorry, we'll work the bugs out.
So, well, the purpose of good afternoon, warm afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to come and talk about LCAP and present it to you. I just have to share, good afternoon, Board President Holstrom, board members, cabinet, and members of the public. The purpose of us being here tonight is really to solicit recommendations from the members of the public in regards to the LCAP. And I just want to begin by saying there isn't a face behind me and there isn't a face in front of me that hasn't taken a great part and been a stakeholder in the development of the LCAP. And so with that, I just have to say thank you to every single person in this room. It's been a long process. It's been a year-long process. And there is one person who I'd like to recognize because I was given her certificate this afternoon, and we probably won't have any other opportunity, and that is Cynthia Clark, valued stakeholder in the formation of... I know, but you know what? You gave us so much input over and over and over. So come on up and accept your congratulations, because I'm not going to carry this around anymore. Thank you. And you know, Cynthia, you may not have felt that you were a real integral part, but your participation has been in our ed planning process, at board meetings, and for that kind of input we really do value. So thank you very much. So all of you in front of me have, and some of you behind me, have this legal size document. I'm not going to make you read the whole thing, and I'm not going to read it to you, because thank you, Bill. I know, I was hoping you'd edit it before it went public, but that's okay. I just want to share with you that this template took, like Jonathan said, it's really started a year ago. And everything that's contained in here really doesn't tell everything we've done. We had to adhere to a template, and that template has some parameters on it. So I'm going to walk you through. There's three main parts of this document. There's the stakeholder engagement piece, and I think that's the green tab, your first tab. Then there's the goals and progress indicators. And then there's services and expenditures. I'm going to walk you through the first two, and then my wonderful team is each going to come and present the services and expenditures. This is a comprehensive planning tool. The LCAP goes for 3 years, but each year we have to have an annual review, and that will also require the stakeholders to take part in that. And that annual review has to be presented and finalized and approved by July 1 of every subsequent year. So if you'll turn to the stakeholder section in there, starts on page 3, down at the bottom. It talks about involvement. And putting it first in the document really reflects the significant role that the engagement of parents, students, educators, administrators, local bargaining units, and the community plays to support student performance. I can switch this right here. Okay, we have so many slides to show. All the stakeholders really made students first. It came from a students first perspective. And what we did was on pages 3, 4, and 5, and 6, it outlines the number of meetings that we've had, and they were broken down in many ways. It wasn't just a matter of us pulling the parents and students and staff together, but what happened, we also had administrative meetings on a monthly basis that talked about components of LCAP, that site administrators took back to their respective sites, implemented and shared at their advisory councils and committees so that they could develop their SIPSs, commonly known as the Single Plan for Student Achievement. That was one process. The other process was to include our community and parents and students as well as employees of Paris. So we originally sent out an invitation, come one, come all. There were no, we'd like Mrs. Cooley to take part. We didn't personalize it in that. We opened the doors for every single person to take a part and do what they could do. If they could only come to one forum, that was fine, because each one of the forums were based on the needs of the district. So through the year, each one of the directors and our TOSAs presented assessment data, overview of our district so that people had a good understanding of where Paris Union High School District is, determine needs, where do we have some gaps that we really need to fulfill and work on to get better. With the LCAP, there are specific groups that we do have to focus in on, and there's also 8 state priorities. And in the back, the last page of this document, I'm just going to tell you, you don't have to go there right now, but it talks about the 8 state priorities in accordance to Education Code 52060. I think we all know this in our sleep, we can say it. But it outlines the 8 priorities that we had to address throughout the LCAP. So this is our involvement piece, and you can read through it. It's pretty clear. The biggest thing that happened through the stakeholder meetings was that we did all the forums, we did information gathering, needs analysis, our data disaggregation, needs analysis. Then it was identifying what are the goals of our district that we're really going to work on, and what are our measurable objectives. And these are all outlined throughout this LCAP. That's the purpose of the LCAP. So as each person comes up and shares their particular section, you'll see what our goals are, what our objectives are, and how we're going to get there. Okay, so flipping over to page 8. Or actually, it's on your second tab. That's goals and progress indicators. I think it's a pink tab, isn't it? Pink, yellow? Yellow? Okay. I just want to walk you through this template a little bit. The data they refer to on the left-hand column, you'll see identified need and metric. This is the data that's listed so we could create each one of our goals and how we measure progress towards meeting those goals. They talk about the metrics, and that simply is, like your your CST scores, your CASI scores. It may be suspension data, it may be expulsion data, attendance, et cetera, et cetera. That's how those are the units of measure, as we call them. Then there's a description of the goal, and you'll see this. You'll think, oh, this is such a redundant template. It is. Goal 1 is the same as the Goal 1 that they'll talk about in a few minutes. Applicable pupil subgroups. I just want to share with you that any subgroup is considered, if it's defined as 30 or more students, that's a subgroup. And whether it be foster youth, English learners, special students with disabilities, we have more than 30 in a group. So all our subgroups, all students are being considered, and all schools and all grade levels. As you can see, it walks you through what's going to be different, the progress indicators. What's going to be different? What is it what's above and beyond what you're already doing? So year 1, you can read for Goal 1, these are things that have been established. Year 2, these are the actions that have been established. And year 3. Then they talk about how do these relate or how do they align to the 8 state priorities, which we are mandated to address. So when you see priority 1, 2, and 7, that goes back to that last page on the 8 state priorities. Okay? So that's how that works. Now I want to share with you. Are you confused, Joan? Ask me as we go. Each year we review. We review the performance and student progress in year 1, and there's a column, if you'll see, it says annual update, analysis of progress. We put in what happens there, and it moves on. It's not just, so it will roll over into the next 3 year. We don't really know for sure what's going to happen. We presume that LCAP, since it's a 3-year cycle, that it will be another development of a 3-year cycle, maybe with lots of money. So that explains the progress indicators. You will see the same information in the next areas that Grant and Charles Tippie and Diane and Charles Newman will be presenting as well. So I think that's about it. Any questions up to this point? Totally confused? Okay, so with that, I'm going to have Grant. I think you're doing Goal 1, which begins on, you have your page? Page 13. 13? Okay.
Thank you. I'm back. I'm going to be talking about Goal 1, and we talked about that when we did the presentation before, but it boils down to all students will attain proficiency in all academic content areas. So this is we want all the kids test score-wise and CELT levels and things moving up. And really what I want to talk about is how we're going to do it. We're going to continue with our Common Core implementation teams developing that rigorous curriculum that's going to help the kids meet their goals and be able to reach higher levels. And we're going to do that through targeted professional development. The AVID Institute is one. We have RCOE come in and going to work with us as other ways that we're going to really have targeted professional development. And we're going to get PLCs back to what they're supposed to be, where we're answering 3 basic questions. What do we want kids to learn? How do we know if they learn it? And what do we do if they don't? That's really what PLCs are supposed to be about. So that's what we're going to try to get back and really structure those PLCs back into that focus. Extended learning opportunities for kids. What we're looking at is after-school programs that we can help kids meet standard. Intersession, whether it be winter break, spring break, some Saturday programs for kids, and like we're doing this summer, the acceleration program during the summertime to help kids reach higher levels. And then instructional technology, really working with our staff and our students to take that technology to another level. How are we going to really engage kids more, get them really at a high level using instructional technology. So that's kind of where we're going with Goal 1. Did that make sense? Any questions? I'm going to turn over to Charles then. Charles is doing Goal 2.
And Goal 2 focuses on getting kids ready for college and careers. And if you look at the overarching themes of this goal and the action items, we're really looking at, and the action items start on page 16 of the plan, we're looking at options and opportunities for students. So we want to give kids multiple pathways for meeting both catching up on credits and also getting ahead. So blended learning opportunities, before school and after school and opportunities for that. Two really good examples of that would be the dual enrollment programs that we have with the community colleges. And then we're also already getting students into the Summer Bridge, students from our collaborative districts that are getting ahead in mathematics for the Common Core so they can take our integrated courses. We're also, a second theme that you'll see is early intervention and monitoring. So we want to make sure that we catch kids early on in their high school experience, get them the help that they need so they can get ahead. So you'll see a lot of increased course audits. So we're looking at students making sure they're enrolled in the right courses. Counselors are meeting with students one-on-one to look at that, and they have the 4-year plans. And then also monitoring students throughout the unit assessments and making sure that we're aligning our assessments with the Common Core and Smarter Balance assessments that are really measuring readiness for college and careers. So those are the main themes in goal number 2, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Newman.
So I have goal 3, and I think for all of us, when we hear goal 3, all departments and sites will provide a safe and positive environment for staff and students, something that's near and dear, I think, to all of our hearts in terms of making sure our campuses are safe throughout our campus, throughout our district. So our how behind that was the implementation of PBIS, positive behavior intervention supports, throughout our entire district, and that's basically a focus of ensuring there's consistency in terms of our expectations on all of our campuses and in all of our classrooms throughout our district. So it's a 3-tiered approach where we work from that very preventative approach at the bottom level. How do we prevent these issues from happening on our campus? And then also developing responses. We know challenges are going to occur, but what is our response when these things happen on our campuses? So that's the PBIS process that we're working to establish on all of our campuses. If you look at page 10, and page 18, and then also I believe it's page 25, it maps out the action items for goal 3 in terms of how we go through the process to get this done. It talks about tier 2 services for students at risk, specifically talking about what do we do if a student is at risk, a student that violates rules on campus. What do we offer that particular student in terms of drug prevention, violent prevention, bully prevention? All those items need to be spelled out on our campuses to help support kids that are in that cycle. Increase enrichment activities on campus in terms of providing guest speakers, field trips, providing opportunities for kids to get those enrichment activities, really providing a proactive approach in terms of engaging kids. Develop a system to intervene and monitor students behaviorally at risk, and that's a process we're going through. And this goal, really what we're focusing on is using our current resources, because I believe that there's a lot of talent inside our district to support kids if we work together and create those consistencies. The last one is identify and address barriers to student attendance, and we want to continue that process to ensure that kids are coming to school. We know in order for a kid to be successful, we got to get kids to school, and so in this goal, we have that built into there as well. And so, does anyone have any questions about goal 3? All right, thank you.
Good evening. Wrapping up goal 4. To improve communication and participation among all stakeholders throughout the district and school community. We talked briefly about this. Some of these efforts are underway through our parent university that we began this year. Our significant areas that we want to focus on is the collaboration and outreach efforts between the district and school community. And the way we propose to do that is to really utilize the instructional technology piece. For us, dinosaurs are old people coming along with this whole wave of technology, is really utilizing the technology out there and its efforts by utilizing Haiku, and we're also looking to reach out to the community and try to build some partnerships so that we can have access points for our students to be able to congregate as well as our parents as well. Also building capacity for parents through our educational workshops and trainings. We're underway in many of these areas. Building school partnerships in the local community. We are looking to, what came across really loud and clear in this particular goal was really to increase the Wi-Fi connection and access points not only through the community but through our school campuses as well, those areas that students tend to congregate, which might be fields, football fields, those areas outside of the main campus where students are, going to the buildings, the classroom buildings. Just increasing our efforts to engage parents to become more partners in their children's education, and we're doing this through our parent literacy, our computer literacy. We're also looking to increase that technology piece as well, is to get them connected to school using Haiku. And the last bullet is the partnership, building partnerships throughout the community, is really just trying to bring our business partners in to share their knowledge and expertise and expectations from our young people, as well as connecting through job shadowing, internships, their senior portfolios and interviews, and just have them as mentors on our campuses as well. So many of these efforts are underway that we've started this last year, and we are going to continue to move this through our LCAP process for the next 3 years. Many of our resources are in-house, are funded through categoricals. So these are some of the efforts that we're going to be moving forward over the next 3 years. Any questions?
And I think, Board, what you're seeing by looking at these goals, that many of these goals are things we're already doing. LCAP doesn't have to be something brand new, but you can be very proud of the fact that in every one of these goals, we're already off to the races, especially as it relates to technology and the one-to-one implementation that we put together this year. So obviously, we want to continue doing what we're doing, but we have some new ideas. And certainly, I don't want anybody to lose what Mr. Newman was saying. PBIS, okay, positive behavior intervention strategies, are directed at the core students that this money is set for, and that is English learners, students in poverty, and foster youth. They are suspended and expelled throughout this country at a far higher rate than their attendance in schools. We need to do better, and we're going to do better. But it's going to change a whole different look at the way we approach these students and deal with them. And I appreciate your leadership in that, Charles, because you're right. It doesn't necessarily mean more resources. It means taking advantage of the resources we have as well. Marcy, are you ready to come and answer any questions?
Well, the purpose of LCAP was LCFF and LCAP funding is truly to be transparent. It's because it's monies that will be posted. For instance, let me just go back for a second. Jonathan's 100% in what he's saying. That was my closing statement. That this doesn't really tell all the wonderful things that have happened in this district. And I honestly have to say, Paris Union High School District, long before I even came here, things were in place that most districts didn't have in place, hadn't even begun to think of, and we continue to do great things. This LCAP template is what is almost over and, above and beyond. We will continue to do those great things. We will continue to look at those particular subgroups on how do we reach them, how do we close the gaps for them. With community outreach, a huge effort has to go into community outreach, because they're the public are our auditors of what we're doing and the monies that are expended, if that answers.
So
yes.
There is a mandatory audit.
And what will happen? Yes.
The county will, assuming you on June 18th approve the LCAP and the LCFF and the budget, which Candace will present shortly, that will have to go to the county and be approved. So every year they're going to look at what you're doing and see that you're true to your plan and that you're spending the money as the state wanted us to spend it for these students.
And no, that's a very good question, because CISC sent out what happens when it goes to the county for county review. Every every expenditure has to align to an action. Action has to align to an addressed need. And that need isn't just a subjective, I think, ninth grade students need such and such. Our data has to show that. We have to demonstrate progress towards student improvement. Once the county approves that, the state goes through the same critical review. So, yes, and that's on an annual basis.
And as an example, board, we were just in the newspaper last week or the week before. We were number one in the county in terms of having the highest percentage of English learners advanced or proficient in Riverside County. We're really proud of that. But that number only approaches 60%. So, I mean, our goal is to get, so when the reporter asked me, was I satisfied? No, well, I'm not satisfied at beating the competition. Competition isn't the other districts. It's getting that other 40% of English learners to be advanced or proficient. So clearly, that's our goal. Our goal is 100% graduation, 100% of our students at becoming proficient or advanced. We're not going to be satisfied until we get to those kinds of goals.
On pages, I think it's 20, you don't have to turn there, I just want to clarify what they are because they're fairly repetitive of what's contained in earlier sections of the LCAP. But pages 21 through 26 talk specifically about our focus on the low-income students, English learners, and foster youth. And we had to outline what are we doing specifically for them for the next 3 years. Now, when you look at it, it looks pretty bare. It really isn't because, like Jonathan had said, you know, we've done so much and continue to do so much. We just don't define that in each column each year.
Well, and if I wasn't so worried about the money, we would, I mean, one of my ideas that didn't make the list, just goes to show you're superintendent and your ideas don't always make the list. I really believe we need to do something different. I think we need to hire social workers late afternoon into the early evening and go into the homes of our English learners and our students in poverty to help educate the parents on what they can do to support their children who are coming to middle school and high school. I'm hoping that down the road we're going to be able to do that because if you really want to make that quantum leap between 60 and 100, you've got to do something different than we've ever done before. And clearly having those people go into the homes and being able to tell them, look, if a parent doesn't know where to go, a battered wife doesn't know where to go. We want these people to be able to help solve those social problems so the kids can come to school and not worry about where they're going that afternoon, or if it's where to go get food, or whether to go get clothing, or how to sign up for Parent University and become computer literate themselves so they can help their children. I mean, ultimately, that's where we'd like to see LCAP dollars going, to doing things that we've never done before. But clearly, when you talk about the technology, we heard that student from Heritage High School who I read to the board at the last board meeting. The student said that with that technology connected him to the school for the first time in his life as a senior in high school. So clearly we're not throwing out what we've done. We're trying to enhance what we've done and even do it better.
And your wish may come true because we did put it in year 2 under objective 4.2. So my final comment is really in regards to page 29. Joan, you asked about is there an audit? What we did was we gave a financial picture, a summary, just so people had kind of an understanding of the different types of money, because you have LCFF supplemental and concentration monies, you have career technical education, Common Core monies, as Grant presented, title monies, Title I, Title II, Title III, and anything other that's listed there. So these types of summaries will be available for public to preview on an ongoing basis. They need to know what we're working with. We do a phenomenal job with the money that we do receive. So any questions, comments?
Yeah, I have one. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, all right. I did go through this, and you know me, I can be kind of picky on things.
Well, I was hoping you would have done it before I ran copies, Mr. Holstrom.
I'm sorry, that was today, and too bad. Just some of the stuff. This was from page 4, the impact on LCAP, and on the right side it says district-wide survey feedback to provide the feedback on it. And the next one was saying allowing and promoting genuine feedback in LCAP, and I was kind of wondering what genuine means. Is that real feedback, or I just don't understand.
Genuine feedback, meaning from our parents. Students spoke very candidly. They did not hold back, even in a room with administrators and teachers and other community members. It was their honest picture, and I have to say in our study sessions, the reason we put the word genuine in there because there were parents who were emotional about what they wanted for their child and other children in our district. It was truly and so well received. I mean, it gave us a perspective from the community and parents, so it was genuine.
Okay,
And also from a survey. The survey, I think, survey results really indicated they weren't just, okay, I'm just going to check this one. There were genuine
They
comments.
were actually speaking out and telling you what they thought about things. Okay,
Very candid comments, I want you to know.
Sometimes I
No,
get
thank you.
confused with those others. I just want to comment that, this is what you gave us in April, and I read through that too, so, there's something wrong with me, I guess. But there's quite a few changes that I see that you left things out, and you added numbers and stuff, so I appreciate a lot of the changes and the work you've done. This is on page 11. On this one is increased parent capacity and participation in their children's education by 10%. And I was just kind of wondering, how do you determine the base, and how do you measure this?
Diane, do you want to address that? Because we spent several study sessions on that, and she really facilitated a great study session with parents.
Well, we did do data collection across the district. We collected
Did what?
data collection.
Oh, data. Okay.
And so we took attendance, sign-in sheets. We just created a big spreadsheet from this last year to determine how many participants, parents are participating through our parent university. So that became our base for this year, so that we can have something to gauge and how we can build our programs going into next year.
Parent university, is this the one
Parent
where they're
university
coming
is just
in?
kind of our umbrella that we incorporate our computer literacy classes,
Okay,
our
so-
parent literacy levels 1 and 2. We have our Zumba, we have our health classes.
Okay, so when I get folders from Marcy about all the
Yes,
training and
yes.
stuff, and it has the stuff, it's from that kind of
Yes,
stuff. Okay.
yeah. So that'll be our base, and then so as
Okay.
we move forward, we'll be able to gauge the increased participation for the
So
district.
basically, if you get more parents coming in the next year,
And we hope to offer more offerings. A lot more to do with the technology piece, getting our kids and our parents connected. So that's going to help build our program.
How we also use the IC parent portal information. That was huge. That was a big piece.
Well, that was, there was a lot of comments about creating user-friendly logins and passwords, and we talked to Joe about, getting that piece. That came across loud and clear when you talk about genuine comments and feedback. That was one of the concerns that parents had, because they wanted to know what was happening with regards to attendance and grades for their students. So it was a challenge for some.
Make it easier for them
Yes,
to
it was
find
cha-
out
yes,
instead
yeah.
of
So it was,
coming up with some secret word or something.
Exactly. Well, apparently they're really long numbers, and so it is to just create user-friendly passwords and logins so parents can be able to monitor their child's attendance.
Okay. The other one was goal 3. I'd noticed that on this one we just gave us that goal 3 it was in a lot of different pages, but Charles did mention that, when you look at page 25 for some others and go back to another page. And okay, I guess that's why the ones I was kind of wondering about weren't there. They were somewhere else, but okay. And goal 4, there was something about channel 3, and
Oh, yes.
I can remember when I was teaching, we had a channel 1 at one time, but I understood that one. You turn it to channel 1, and okay.
There was
That's
Channel
Channel
3, there was 24/7. There were all types of local media that we need to do a better job in utilizing our local media in sharing and broadcasting. So, local cable, right?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, local media.
Is that's on the cable Time Warner or something? And those of us that are not in
No.
Time Warner, it's tough tiddlywinks. Okay, thank you. Okay, Ed, are you still there?
I'm here. I fell asleep. Oh, I'm sorry. No, my question was related to stakeholders.
Yes.
I don't see a list. Maybe it is in here, but I think that's important to know who they are. Genuine stakeholders, not anybody or everybody, but
We do.
that'd be nice just for historical perspective.
We have that we have that back at home. We kept all the sign-ins, and we have a whole spreadsheet of students' names and whatever. We just weren't able to put it into the LCAP template. They
can
would have
we-
booted that out, but we can produce
For
that
June
for you.
18th for the board
Yeah.
meeting, we'll have a list of all the parents, staff, students, community members, everybody who participated. We'll list them by group so you can see how big the group
Yeah,
is.
it'd be nice to see that, and we get a better perspective, as well as down the line, somebody said, nobody ever asked me. Well, how come? Okay.
Well,
that
and
sort
you
of
get
thing.
to see Mrs. Porris's name because she was very involved.
Yeah,
as a
she was
parent.
real excited about this process.
Yeah.
And felt,
this
and
process
felt
will,
included. Yeah.
This process will continue. Ed Services has decided that we really need to maintain our stakeholder forums throughout the year and each year. So we will do a minimum of 2 stakeholder forums a year. We need that input. It's not about all of us sitting in our office and designing this. We need to know what the feelings and ideas and views are out there. No other questions? Public.
Question, and I call for motion. What exactly is this motion to do? So that's just opening and closing this thing. Okay. Yeah, I was seeing this thing kept coming on and off and irritating me. Oh, well, let me try. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Okay, there's Ed.
California Chrome still came in 5th.
There was no tie. What are you talking about?
Okay, so, all right.
We can have a.
Joan. Okay, so it,
I think you have to have a vote on it.
do we have to vote to, oh, okay,
You've got a motion in a second.
okay. Well, okay, well, okay, this is a vote to open the public hearing. I just vote, okay? It should pop up. It actually did. That's an accident.
We're actually going to be able to vote.
Yes, I did.
Oh, oops.
David, you have
It
it.
says under discussion.
Democracy is very slow.
Carolyn voted. How did she vote?
No, it was to her as not
Oh.
mine still says under discussion.
Why don't we just
Okay, he's aye, okay. That should solve that problem for
the
you.
record show that the board voted 4-0 to open the public hearing?
Okay, and we will open no public hearing at 5:55. Okay, did anybody have any comments they want to make about this LCAP thing we have here?
Final draft.
Almost final draft. Nobody wants to come up? Brady, not you either? Yeah. Okay, nobody wants. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh.
He's got the knuckle cracking and everything.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Any other takers? Okay, well, we'll close this one at 5:57. Go on to the next item. Business public hearing regarding adoption of the 2014-15 district budget. And we have have to have.
And again, this is a new process as well.
Yeah, just while Mr. Rabing is handing those out, the code sections that govern LCAP, as you know, are new. The budget code sections did not change, so we used to be allowed to have a public hearing for the budget and adopt it in the same night. That is still allowed. However, the LCAP codes say that LCAP public hearing and the budget public hearing have to be on the same night, and you can't adopt LCAP on the same night. So I like to tease Marcy and say she just screwed up my whole process. So tonight, 9 days in advance of approving the budget, we just want to give you a quick overview of the district budget, and then we will bring it forward for your approval next week at the regular board meeting. So we'll try and go through this really quickly. Why am I not working here? Did I do that? Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so as you know from our previous presentations, with the passage of Prop 30, with a slow and steady economy growth, our budget started looking a lot better in January. That's what allowed us to, bring forward the recommendation to you to go out to our employee groups and offer a raise. And so that was all really great news. We want to talk about the May revise for just a minute and how it affects LCFF. There really isn't any new money above the January funding levels. We were very grateful for the January funding levels, so this is by no means a doom and gloom presentation. There just isn't a lot of changes between January and May. Continued funding for LCFF, combined with the 11.78% funding gap for this year, 13-14, with the new gap for next year, we're over a third of the way to full implementation, which was originally thought to be 8 years. So that is good news. You can see the LCFF growth, about $737 per student. That is all good news. But again, none of this has changed since January. So just a quick review there. I also wanted to review really quickly, since this is new, how are our LCFF dollars calculated. So we get a base grant per ADA. You can see here, I'm just going to focus on the 9 through 12 column. We have 4 different funding grade span levels. I'm going to focus on 9 through 12 just because it's easier, it's to the right, and that's what most of our students are. So we take our base grant amount, we multiply it by COLA, which is 0.85%, till we get our 14-15 base grant amount. We then take that, and there's an adjustment percentage for class size reduction, which of course does not apply to us as a high school district, but the Career Tech Ed or CTE percentage does apply to us. We get that adjustment amount, and now we have an adjusted grant amount per our ADA. We then get what you have heard Marcy talking about, supplemental and concentration. And those dollars are different for every single district throughout the state, and that is based on our unduplicated pupil count. If you recall from earlier presentations, the unduplicated pupil count is made up of our free and reduced lunch count, foster youth, and our English learners. So all of those students counted only once make up 71.3, is that right, Chris? 71.8% of our population. And as Jonathan was mentioning at the very beginning of the board meeting, because we have such a large proportion of those, we do get a lot of supplemental and concentration dollars. So you can see there, if you look in the 9 through 12 column, we should be getting $10,695 per student. That isn't quite the case, though. If you do the... But wait. So you can see our ADA multiplied by each of the targets for the grade spans that we have. We add our TIG dollars, which is Targeted Instructional Improvement Block Grant, to transportation. For some reason, those 2 amounts were left out of the formula, and so they are add-ons. So this looks really great, $93.5 million, but it's just not. It's not a doom and gloom presentation. Who's doing that? I know. That was good. I don't know. That was Tony Stafford. So you've heard us talking about these gap funding percentages, and back in the revenue limit days, when a COLA was applied to the base revenue limit per ADA, it was multiplied by COLA. In years when the state could not afford to pay the amount that they owed us, they would deficit that. You remember us for years and years and years talking about the deficit factor. Yes, it's not a whole lot different other than there's money coming in for LCFF. This dollar amount back on the last slide, whether you're looking at our total dollars or the dollar per ADA, the state can't afford to give that to us all in 1 year. So they're phasing it in with these gap closure percentages. You're guaranteed your ceiling or your floor, which is your funding from last year, and then you have your ceiling, which is what they wish they could pay to you. And so, but they're only funding a percentage of what's in the middle. So you can see for 14-15, 28.06 is the gap funding percentage that Department of Finance recognizes. And you can see that in the out years, and those numbers grow in 15-16 and reduces slightly in 16-17. However, in our multi-year, we are using the numbers recommended by School Services of California. In the 8 years I've been up here doing presentations, probably one consistent message we all know is that there is volatility with state funding. And so while we hope all of this money comes in 15-16 and 16-17, we just don't know what those gap funding percentages are. And so as we have always done in this district, we follow the advice of School Services of California, and so we are budgeting those lower gap funding percentages, which essentially just covers what the state is saying will be our COLA increases. So those are the factors that go in to the multi-year projection. If you're interested, here is how the LCFF funding calculation works. I was talking about you have a target. You subtract your funding floor to come up with your difference. You multiply that by the gap funding rate to come up with your LCFF entitlement. We won't walk through all of these numbers. I just wanted you to see how it works. And then you come up with what's actually funded on a per ADA amount.
It's only 17 million short.
It's just a little bit. So if you look at this gap funding line here, this is what you could essentially say is new money coming into the district over the previous year. So $8 million over 13-14, 3.7 was our new money this year. And so oftentimes people will ask us, well, how does that break down between all of these different sort of pots that you've talked about? And so we've listed those for you here: the base grant, the supplemental, the concentration, the grade span, which is really the CTE, to come up with our total new funding allocations, or the gap funding. Okay. So one other thing, and I won't read all of this to you because Jonathan talked about all of this prior to the presentation, which is the governor's proposal for CalSTRS. And so an increase in on contributions, I'm going to skip to the next slide actually, from all three parties, from the state, from the employee, and for the employers, is what's on the horizon. That's what's in the governor's proposal. As Jonathan and I were talking throughout the last couple of weeks as we were discussing this with other superintendents and CBOs, if the governor's plan were to change and the rate increases didn't come effective until, say, the next year, that's great, but it's very similar to folks in the community that may have purchased a house and had a balloon payment at the end. You have to plan ahead for that. We can't ignore that eventually we're going to get up to 19.1% on our employer contribution. And so it's in the multi-year projection as though the rate increase goes into effect next year. It may not, but if it doesn't, we would be wise to save that money for when it does come into effect. Just for summary purposes, and again, CalSTRS has increases as well. You can see the rate increases if we focus right here. 8.25% is what we are currently paying on top of all certificated salaries for STRS. That jumps to 9.5% next year, up to 11.1 in 15-16 and 12.7 in 16-17. It increases by 1.6% until it hits 19.1 every year, and the same for STRS. So you can see in 3 years, just for STRS alone, $1.7 million of the money that we did not anticipate a year ago, I would say, contributing to STRS. So maybe that is a little bit of doom and gloom, and I promise no doom and gloom. But so let me actually switch it over to Chris Rabing, who will go over the highlights of the multi-year projection with you.
Thank you, Candace. Good afternoon. So what we have here is the 3-year projection. What you do notice is that we have a little bit of deficit spending for next year, and as we continue on, we see a little bit larger deficit spending. We have that typical 3% that we had in the second interim, as we discussed ongoing. If we look at the enrollment, we're looking at a slight jump in enrollment, and then we're looking to steady off our next essentially 3 years with all the evaluation that we have. We don't see a growth, but what's beneficial is we don't see a decline in enrollment either. What we do have for you also is the unrestricted and restricted expenditures. What we're getting to the point now where if you're looking at the certificated, classified, and the employee benefits in the unrestricted category, we're looking at about 92% of our expenditures are in the salaries and benefits, and then we have about 18% in those other categories: books, supplies, services, contracts, and that type of thing. If you're looking at the restricted categories, those are some of the titles and the different things that we have are required by the state or the federal government to spend. You'll see 48% of those are the other expenditures, and only 52% of them are the certificated, classified, and benefits. Finally, what I have for you is the summary of the other district funds. So the unrestricted, the restricted general funds. We have the charter, the adult ed, cafeteria, and capital facilities and whatnot. So what we're looking at as a board today, we are going to open up a public hearing for public comment. Following that, we're going to be looking at presenting at the June 18th board meeting. Following that board meeting, what we're going to be doing is packaging both the budget and the LCAP. We're going to send it to the county. The county is going to be evaluating those at the same time. One of the things that we have in the budget and the LCAP is the monies have to even out and look the same. So the county is going to make sure that we are providing a budget that is allocating the funds for the LCAP. And then finally, after the governor's budget adoption, we'll make any revisions that we may need to have. Is there any specific questions for the budget? Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we need a motion to have a public hearing here.
So moved. Second.
Okay, David and Joan. Okay, please vote on that.
Excuse me.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing. It is 6:11. Would anybody like to come up and make comments about this wonderful budget? Don't everybody come up at once. Okay. I don't see anybody desiring to do that, so we'll close it at 6:12. Okay, a motion for adjournment of this.
So moved. Second.
Boy, this is always the closest one. And Edward, please vote.